Hi everyone, and welcome to Creative Cakes by Sharon. Today I'm going to show you how to create this cake of Princess Ariel from The Little Mermaid. Thanks for all of your suggestions. I've had so many requests for Ariel, so I thought I'd create her today and add her to my Disney Princess Cakes playlist. You can check out the other princesses I have created by clicking on the link you see on screen now. If you don't see your favourite princess in my playlist, be sure to let me know and I'll do my best to create her for you. Guys, if you're not already a subscriber, make sure you click the subscribe button so you can see all of my princess cake tutorials as I release them, as well as all of my other creative cake tutorials. So I have here today my Princess Ariel template, and you can get a copy of this in the description box below. Print it out across 2 sheets and stick it together. I've got a 10-inch square cake plus a 14-inch square board. I've got some deep orange coloured fondant, some ivory fondant, a little bit of white, turquoise, red and black fondant. I've got my large fondant rolling pin, a large serrated knife. I've got some chocolate ganache as well as some simple buttercream frosting, and you can get a link to this in the description box below as well. I'm using some petal dust today in green, red, blue, pink and peach. I've got a little bit of water, my offset spatula, palette knife, sharp knife, X-Acto blade, my pair of scissors and some fluffy brushes. So let's get started. The first thing I need to do is cut my cake all the way through the centre, dividing it into 2. Then I'm going to fill a layer of the buttercream frosting and pop the top of the cake back on. Here I've positioned my template of Princess Ariel onto the cake, and using my sharp knife I'm going to cut all the way around the template, making sure the knife is vertical all the time so the edges are nice and straight. Once I've finished cutting, I'm going to remove the excess cake. I'm going to create a few different levels in the cake, and these will be the top of her hair, the length of her hair, her neck, her face and the sides of her hair. So I'm going to start cutting my template into all these different sections. I've put all the little pieces of the template back onto the cake, and the first level I'm going to cut now is the long side of her hair. So I'll just remove the other pieces of the template, and I'm going to insert my knife about 1 centimetre into the cake and cut around the inside edge of her hair. Then coming in from the side of the cake, I'm just going to slide my knife until it hits the first cut, removing about the top centimetre of the cake. The next layer I'm going to create is going to be for her face, so I'm just going to remove again the other little pieces of the template and use the knife to cut around her face. This layer needs to be a little lower than the first layer. To remove this piece of the cake, I'm going to use my knife to score some diagonal lines across her face and use the palette knife to scoop out the extra cake. The next layer I need to cut is for the neck, and it needs to be lower than her face. So to make sure it is lower, I'm going to run my knife a little bit deeper around this section and then scoop it out again. I want to create the shadow that occurs at the top of her hair, so I just need to cut around the inside of that template and remove a little section. Moving on to the side of her hair, this level needs to be lower than her face. And finally just scooping out a little bit of this cake behind her neck to create another level in her hair. Once I'm finished, I'm left with 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 layers in the cake. This is the most time consuming step, however it sets us up for a beautiful end product. It's now time to cover the entire cake with my chocolate ganache, making sure I get into all of the crevices and the layers that I created. If you find that the ganache is a little bit too stiff to spread, just pop it in the microwave for about 10 seconds. Once the cake is completely covered, I need to cool it in the fridge for about 10 minutes. the cake comes out of the fridge, the ganache is nice and set, but still soft enough to smooth over to get an even surface. I do this by heating up my offset spatula in some boiling water, wiping off the excess moisture and gliding it over the cake. I'm going to continue doing this until I'm happy that there are no bumps in my ganache and my edges are nice and sharp. Because this cake has some deeper layers in it, like the shadows of her hair behind her neck, it's a little bit difficult to get in there with an offset spatula, so the best thing to do is to wet the paper towel just slightly and smooth over the surface of the ganache. At this point, I'm going to carefully transfer my cake onto the cake board. I'm going to start covering the cake now, and I'll start with Ariel's face. So I've rolled out my fondant to about 3mm thick, and I'm going to cut around my template, remembering to cut wide enough so that there is plenty of fondant to reach down the sides of the cake. I'm going to place the fondant on the cake now, very carefully, just manoeuvring it into place, smooth it into the edges and trim off the excess. Doing the same thing again for her face. I'm also going to use a little ball of the same coloured fondant to smooth over the surface. To create Ariel's hair, I'll do exactly the same thing, and I'm going to start off with the largest section of her hair, cutting around the template, ensuring that there's enough clearance in the fondant to cover the sides of the cake. The best way to get the sharp edge at the end of her hair is to pinch the fondant together, trim it off with a blade, and smooth the fondant so the seam is invisible. For the little area behind Ariel's neck, which forms the little shadow in her hair, I'm just going to cut a small round piece of fondant and gently press it into the cavity, blending the sides into the other fondant. I need to just work on covering the two remaining sections of Ariel's hair. When I come to the top section of hair, to create the definition in the layers, I use the back end of my paintbrush to press the fondant down, stretching it ever so slightly so that it sits deep into the cavity. Now I'm going to use the back end of my paintbrush again to create some lines in the fondant for Ariel's hair. The last little piece of hair I need to add for Ariel is the piece that just covers her ear, so I've just cut that out of some red fondant and just attaching it using the template as a guide to position it in the correct spot. Moving on to Ariel's eyes, I've cut the eye sections out of the template, and I'm going to first start with the whites of the eyes, cutting that out of some fondant, then trimming down the template just to the coloured section of her eyes, placing it on the turquoise fondant, cutting around the shapes, and then assembling the two together. While I've got my white fondant handy, I'm going to cut out the shape of her mouth, as well as roll two little balls for the reflections of her eyes. Using some of the red fondant now, I'm going to roll out some very thin snakes and shape them using the template as a guide to form her lips. I have the template on the cake now, and this is going to help me position the eyes and the mouth in exactly the right spot and adhere them down with a little bit of water. Whenever I make these types of cakes, they always tend to look a little bit funny until it's all put together. So she doesn't quite look exactly like Ariel now, but we'll get there eventually. I'm just using a little bit of the ivory fondant now to shape her nose, always using the template as a guide. Once I'm happy with the shape, I'm just going to stick it onto the cake and blend in the top of her nose so that it sits nice and flush on the fondant. To create the outline for Ariel's eyes, as well as her eyelashes, I'm going to roll a series of little black snakes, tapering them off at the ends and shaping them using my template as a guide. Then it's just a matter of adhering all of the little pieces onto the cake. Ariel's eyebrows are a little bit darker than her hair, so to create a darker colour I just added a tiny pinch of black into a bit of the red fondant, mixed it all together and then rolled 2 skinny snakes for her eyebrows. Now she still doesn't look too much like the picture, so I'm going to improve that now by adding some of the blue petal dust to her eyes to create a nice dark shadow and some nice contrast in the corners of her eyes. I also need to add a little bit of black fondant for her pupil, which I forgot to do earlier. Using the red petal dust, I'm going to add some tone to her hair by brushing it lightly into the grooves. This gives a nice subtle effect. Similarly, I'm going to add some colour to her face with the pink and peach petal dust that I have to emphasise the contours of her face as well as the shadows, especially behind her neck. You can keep adding the petal dust in the various shades until you create a complexion that you're happy with. And here she is, the finished product, my cake of the cheeky yet very lovable Princess Ariel from The Little Mermaid. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, don't forget to give it a like. It means a lot to me to get your support and feedback, so I'd also love to hear from you in the comment section below. Make sure you check out some of my other Disney Princess tutorials. You can click the links which are on screen now. The best way to follow me is by being a subscriber, and if you haven't already done so, you can click the subscribe button now and enjoy all of my creative cake tutorials as I release them. I hope you tune in next time, and thanks for watching.